My hair's going.
Okay. Hi, everyone. This is Lucinda from Shadow Bear and Arrow. I'm Arrow. I'm doing my second edition of Crones. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope this is enlightening or entertaining, and I hope you enjoy it. So today I am talking with Mara Evenstar, and that is her real last name, Evenstar. Um, so she has her hands in her fingers in many pots. She is a very, very busy woman. So I'm really appreciative that you took some time out to talk to me today. So, how many projects, let's just talk about what you're doing right now. How many projects are you involved in now?
Um, hmm. So yeah, thinking in terms of projects, that's interesting. So I'm actually in the process of peeling back a little bit in
Okay.
some things so that I can have a little bit of breathing room because I'm
You told me
like
that a
most of
year
us.
ago, so
I know. Well, it takes a while to wind down things,
yeah,
right?
that's true. That's true.
That's for sure. So, but I am still in that process because, like many others right now, I also feel like there's a new chapter opening up. So,
Okay.
I'm working to do is kind of clear the decks a little bit so that
Right.
I can hear, so that I can hear
Yes, yes, and
what
make
is
room for that.
next.
Make
Yeah.
space for
But
it.
yeah, but what I've got going still is our retail store, Even Stars Chalice in downtown
Yes.
Ypsilanti, is still a going concern.
Yes.
Um, we have Even Star Institute, which is the educational arm, and that's one of the places where I've been peeling back a little bit and mostly
Okay.
just, you
Through the
know,
Institute.
yeah, through the Institute. And because we were putting out a lot of classes with a lot of different instructors and different things. And I've just peeled back now to some core things like Reiki and like the shadow
Okay.
work. So some of the courses that I actually teach. So what I've been peeling back on is like creating classes for others, right?
Okay.
Not creating their classes, but administrating them and holding them under the umbrella of the Institute.
Okay.
So
So less people coming in and teaching their
yeah,
classes. Okay. All right. So
yeah,
how
yeah.
many did you have at your peak? How much have you cut
Um,
back?
yeah, at the peak, we were running about 5 to 7 classes every season.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
yeah, yeah. And right
It's a
now it's
lot.
just, yeah, it is. It is. It's a lot. And I was initially partnered in the Institute, and then because of, personal reasons, the partner pulled away. So I was like doing that pretty much myself.
Oh,
So I was
wow.
doing all the
Okay.
administrative plus stuff, plus creating my own classes and teaching my own classes and having to be there in the space even you know, to let
And then
people into the space.
yeah, and then deal with the retail space as well.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
lot of, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I was you know, you run businesses. And then I'm also in Sophia Unfolds, which is the
Yeah.
organization I created with my daughter. And
Okay,
we're very much
let's talk about that a little bit. What
okay.
is that?
What is that?
What does
So,
that entail? I'm curious. I know you asked me a long time ago if I was familiar with some it was in Christianity, I believe. Some maybe it
mm,
was Sophia or whatever. And Rocky
yeah.
says, she doesn't know what that is. And he was right. I don't know because I've not delved
Mm,
into Christianity all that much. So I'm curious. What is that?
yeah. Yeah. So we were really looking at Sophia, the goddess Sophia, as the goddess of wisdom. But
Okay.
also, in Western esotericism, she is um like even before the creation, right? So
Okay.
she is that one of the a priori, I guess you would say, kind of beams of the world,
Okay.
right? So,
So
but
she's not
Sophia,
involved in Christianity then? Am I
she is, but
misunderstanding? I could
she's
be.
definitely pre-Christianity. Yeah,
Okay.
in Greek
All
and then
right.
even, yeah, in different forms earlier on. Yeah.
So
So,
before the Greek gods and goddesses, and She's before
Yeah,
that.
before even
Okay.
the creation of the world. Yeah,
All
before the
right. Okay.
creation of the earth
Oh,
and the
wow.
world.
All right.
Yeah. So
Okay.
she exists. She exists. She exists. She is.
Okay. She is. She is.
Yes. Yeah.
She
But
is
when we were
everything.
naming, yeah, when we were naming our little organization, though, we were really kind of focused on her as just kind of like the the embodiment of wisdom. And we were really feeling into how the divine feminine was arising, right? And so this was about 12 years ago that we began the organization.
Hmm.
And it began in a really interesting way because my daughter Andrea, who you know,
Hmm.
um, was talking to me, and she was wanting to attend a Women in Power conference at Omega Institute, and she didn't really have the funds for it. And I was working in the corporate world at the time. And so I said, okay, so let me sponsor you. I'll sponsor you to go to this with the caveat of you bring back what you've learned or something and then share it with the community. So that was really how
That's
that
where it
just,
started.
that's how it started. So she went and
That's
she got
great.
really juiced up, right? And
Yeah.
she
Yeah.
came
Yeah.
back.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it was a women in power conference and women in leadership conference. And then she and I actually ended up going to another one like a year later together. But how the sharing happened, what she brought back was we created a women's retreat.
Okay.
Um, and it was a multi-generational women's retreat on women's power and leadership.
Okay.
Um, it was so powerful and juicy that everyone's just like, keep going, do it again.
Okay.
So we ended up doing, I
Nice.
think, like 7 annual retreats. And
Hmm.
then about 10 or so years ago, we started doing the full moon gatherings.
Okay.
And we've done other circles and things like that too. So yeah, so that's one of the pots that I happily play in.
That's a joy
Yeah, that's a
for you.
joy. That's a joy.
Yes.
Although I
Yeah.
will say though that, we've also peeled back on doing the full moon gatherings like every
Okay.
full moon because a couple
Yeah.
of years ago,
You went to
yeah,
quarterly now.
yeah, we went
Yeah.
to quarterly and now we're this year we're just pretty much a little more like, when we feel like it.
When you
Well,
feel like, well, that's good.
that's crone
That's
wisdom right there,
best.
right?
Yes, exactly. I wanted to ask you, I didn't do this. I try to start out with this. How old are you?
Mm, I just turned 59.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
um, you're younger crone, but you're still
I'm
a crone.
I'm younger crone. I'm still a crone. I still very much feel crone because, I was a young mother and a fairly young grandmother. So I have a grandson who's in their early 20s.
Okay.
And then another one that's a teenager, a granddaughter that's a teenager, and then one who's still a child. So I have three grandchildren, but an adult grandchild.
Yeah.
And so I definitely felt the crone early too. Like,
You're a crone
yeah,
for sure. Yeah.
yeah,
So how do
yeah.
you feel as being a crone?
Mm. I feel really good about it. I mean, there's the natural things that you have to deal with, with your body aging
Yes.
and, not being as resilient as it used to be and awkward in some ways as as you go through the changes, right?
Right.
But overall, I mean, for me, Lucinda, my life just keeps getting better and better, right? Even though
Yeah.
there's challenging things, the older I get, the better my life gets, the richer it gets, the
That's so
freer
true,
I
isn't
get.
it?
Yeah,
It's just an
yeah.
amazing experience. It's lovely that at this
Mm,
time in our lives that we can experience all of the things. And then even the bad things that come along, you take them as they
mm,
come. And um like with my uncle and him being sick, and I was really stressed out about that, but I told myself, I finally had to sit myself down and say, look, you can't do this, you can't stress yourself out like that, it's not good for you, it's not healthy. so you calm down, and you can do that when you're older, when you're a croner, when you are an
Hmm.
older person, have that experience and know this too is going to pass, just like
That's right.
everything else has. So
That's right. And you
it's,
care a whole lot less about what people say or think about how you're handling things or what you're doing, what you're
yes.
doing, what you choose to take on. I used to think I didn't care what people thought, but of course I thought a lot, cared a lot about what people
Oh,
thought,
yeah.
right? You don't want to get
I try
exiled
not
from the
to.
tribe, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, you try not to, but it's inevitable that you're going to in some way care about it. It's going to
Yeah.
affect you. Yeah.
Mhm.
So, what in well, let's go back to your childhood a little bit. How
Okay.
is that all right?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Um, what were your parents like?
Oh, what were my parents like? So my parents are still living,
Okay.
um, which is good. And
Yes, that is.
that's right. I'm just noticing it's 11:11 as we're recording.
Oh,
Um, let's see. My parents. I don't think anyone's ever asked me what my parents were like.
oh, is that right? Oh, okay. Well,
So,
the
so
first
this is
time
interesting.
for
Okay, so um, my mom is a very creative person, very gifted and talented in a lot of ways. But very, quiet and kind, although she's been getting her crone on too, I think the last few
go,
years and
girl.
also, right,
That's right.
yeah. It's like amazing is like how as we grow also then we see it's almost like you're giving permission to your parents like to break out of patterns and things like
Yes.
that. And it's the
Yes.
same when my daughters, when my daughters are breaking patterns, it helps give me permission to break those patterns.
To
So it's
do
really
that
amazing
too.
to watch.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
And yeah, and my dad is an extrovert who doesn't know a stranger. And right.
yeah.
Both of them, were very, very hard workers. We had good Protestant work ethic, you know.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, Limited means. We didn't have much in terms of, money.
Mhm.
Not consistently. And there were some really rough years there too. So my dad was a truck driver for a lot of years and then got in an accident
Oh.
and so, was um uh not necessarily disabled, but at a point where, he couldn't work for quite a while.
Mhm.
And so yeah, it's I I know food insecurity. I
Mhm.
know, what it's like
Okay.
to, not have anything. I've been working since I was a young teenager, actually,
Mhm.
working to help support. Um, and yeah, they're just kind people that have their own shadows and
Yeah. Just normal
right.
parents, right?
Yeah,
Pretty
normal
normal. They
parents,
sound like,
people doing the best that they can.
yeah.
And yeah,
They love their
and
kids. How many
they
did
love
you
their
have
kids.
brothers and
Uh,
sisters?
yeah, um, so I'm trying to think about how to do this without like a whiteboard. So growing up, I had thought I had two sisters. So
Okay.
I have an older sister. So I'm a middle child. I have an older
Oh,
sister and
okay.
then a younger sister that's quite a bit, she's like 8 years younger.
Okay.
When I was in my 40s, I learned that I had a half sister by my dad. And so she came into the family. And
Wow.
yeah,
How was
yeah.
that?
So, so, so that was fine. It was fine,
Okay.
because I was like, um,
Okay.
I was kind of like, oh, there you are,
Okay.
there you are, and she and I actually had a lot in common and things like that. And so that was
Nice.
that was fine. It was nice. Um, then though we had like the skeletons in the closet started to rattle.
Oh,
And a little
okay.
later, I found out that my dad, who raised me, is not my biological father.
Oh,
So yeah. And my biological father also had other children that had been like given up for adoption. And
gosh. So
my
you have,
biological father, yeah, was also the father of my older sister. So
oh,
so
okay.
everything like changed, right? It's just like it did,
Yeah,
but it did, but it didn't. So like what I would say is that the relationships stayed the same, pretty much. My sisters are my sisters, but
sure.
how they are categorized all kind of
Oh my
changed.
goodness.
And then there were some additions, right? So there was some
Yeah.
additional half sister and yeah.
So
Yeah.
did you know
So
your biological father
no,
before you found out that he
no,
was your biological?
he had passed away
Oh,
before we found out. And but my older sister, who he was also her biological father, so the
mhm.
dad that raised us actually adopted my older sister.
Oh,
And I had
okay.
known that. I had known she was my half sister, or thought she was half my sister. She's
Oh my
actually my full
goodness.
sister.
Oh my
I know
goodness.
it's just
Yeah,
crazy,
that's
right? But um, it uh, it was kind of a bombshell, but not,
uh,
right? So it kind of blew things up for a little bit, but for the most part, the relationships are solid. My sisters are my sisters, and my dad who raised me is my dad. And then now there's these ancillary things. But I
uh,
think what actually had the biggest impact for me with all of that was actually having to do with heritage, because it's just like I grew up thinking that
yeah,
my heritage was one thing, and then I find out later that it actually
not
wasn't
at
that at
all.
all. It's something else.
Okay.
And and the DNA, with the DNA testing, which is what blew this whole thing up, you get to
Oh,
find out a little bit more about who you think you are isn't necessarily really
who you are. Yeah.
who you are.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was actually um, once again opening and freeing for me.
It would be there would have to be some sort of heaviness or to me it would be heaviness of that those secrets, those things that are hidden that need probably really needed to come out.
Yes. Yeah.
So and everybody's not talking about this and
Hmm.
it needs to come out. So good. That's I can see
Right.
where it would
Yeah.
be a positive for you and for
Yeah.
the rest of your family, your
Hmm.
extended
Yeah.
family.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just like I think that these things used to be kept in silence and in the closet because there was shame around it, and because culturally,
Yes.
whatever was happening to create that situation was not acceptable.
Mhm.
But to me, it is there. You're saying that heaviness, it's that shame that was the actual uh disease, in the family,
Mhm.
not what happened, but
Right,
but
exactly.
but ever, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I can see that. That's
yeah.
very interesting. So,
Hmm.
that was how old were you when you well, you've just found that out. You were older.
Yeah, yeah. So that was now, gosh, lose so much track of time lately,
I
right? Because
know,
I move
goes
so fast. But
fast.
I think that was about 7 years, 8 years ago that
Okay.
that kind of happened. Yeah. Yeah. Maybe
So,
even a little more.
okay. So growing up, you knew nothing about that. And
No,
did
growing,
you now
yeah.
you said that your dad, your stepdad, adopted your older sister who was really your not he was not the
Mhm.
biological dad. Did he
Right.
not adopt you?
Well, the story is that he didn't know.
Oh, okay.
So I was raised as his. Yeah.
Oh, oh my gosh. Now,
Right.
wow.
Yeah. Yay.
Doesn't
Yeah, but it's
A
all
lot going on. You could write a
yeah,
book.
you're right, but like I said, you kind of need a whiteboard, but but in other ways
Yeah.
it just really doesn't matter.
No, it
The
doesn't. It doesn't
it
matter.
it it matters it does matter in terms of like when I go and do like my own healing work and my inner
Mhm.
child work. Um, to be honest, to learn this truth about both how I was conceived and where I came from, and what was happening in my parents' lives at that time, it really started to make some things make sense.
Cleared
So stuff
things.
that you intuitively kind of
Mm.
get as a child, then things started to make a whole lot more sense.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, it definitely made you the person that you are now.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
so, so,
yeah.
you went to public school?
I did. I went to public school and we lived up in a rural area.
Where did you grow up in? What
So,
area?
so I was born in Marshall, Michigan, and then when I
Okay.
was about 3 years old, we moved up north, up into a place called Everett and Hersey, which is about 30 miles west of Clare,
Okay.
along US 10. So up there,
Yes.
and so I spent most of my time up there, and we had a house out in the country, quite a ways out in the country, and I spent and kind of what I guess what I would call a hobby farm or some, a little bit of, yeah. So we had some horses and gardens and things like that. It's really funny because I was recently reflecting on my childhood because a question came up in a sister circle that I was in, and I was looking at kind of the dichotomy of my childhood because it's like I had like two childhoods
Okay.
at the same time. And I think a lot of us did, right? So there's the one childhood, which is like within the family unit with a very authoritarian father. We went to church all the time. There was a
Okay.
lot of structure and a lot of
Okay.
I don't know what I want to say. But so there was that part of my childhood. And then there's the other part where I was kind of like feral in a lot of ways,
I
right?
totally understand that. You were isolated
Yeah,
being
yeah.
growing up where you were, as was I. I
Hmm.
didn't have the religious thing at all, but my dad was the opposite of authoritarian. He just, whatever you want to do, you just did it. We could juggle
Yeah,
knives and be okay with
right,
it. It'd be fine.
right.
Um,
So yeah, so there was a lot of work in my childhood. It's just like so there
yes,
were a lot of
you
chore. There
got
was a
your
lot of
work
chores and there was a lot of work
ethics.
and things like that, right?
Yeah.
But when I wasn't working, I was like either if the weather was bad, I was in my room playing, kind of playing with
Yeah.
my sister by myself. But when it was nice, I was out running the woods,
Yeah.
or I was on my horses, or I
Mhm.
was just, it's like I didn't even learn how to ride a bike till I was like 13 years old,
Oh, okay.
because it was just like I
Yeah.
was I was talking to the trees and the streams and my horses and my animals, and yeah, so there was a very deep connection to earth, to nature. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly me. I am the same way. I feel the same way. When I didn't have any sisters. I had three brothers. So,
mm,
um, but being isolated like that, when weather is nice, you go out. And I mean, for me, I ate a lot of plants. I don't know.
mhm.
Now I think back, what was I thinking? But everything I ate, I'm still here. So I didn't get sick. But I know being an herbalist now, I
Mm,
know which plants, and I thought, well, I ate that. I know that's okay, and I know that, and it says it's okay to eat, so that's a good thing. So yeah,
yeah.
but I grew up very similar
Mm,
as to you, but I had a lot of I played music. I had music in my life.
mm,
We had
mhm.
horses too.
Yeah, yeah. I had music, but not until later,
Okay.
like in high school.
Mhm.
Yeah. So where I was learning to play instruments and and choir and singing and all of that. So yeah. Yeah.
So how was high school for you?
Um, High school was really hard. High school was really hard. Um, I think what really became clear in high school was, and this was later that I figured this out, right? But when I was in it, I was kind of a train wreck in high school.
Okay.
Uh, there were a few key things that happened. One is that I'm very intuitive, psychic, even, and I pick up a lot uh, on what's around me. So I'm very spongy, right? Um,
Yes.
and teenagers, right? And teenage angst. And I think what I didn't really understand at that time was that all of the battering of feelings and stuff, and of course I had my own, but that I was picking up so much of what was around me. And I
Okay.
didn't realize it wasn't mine. Um,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, so it was just like, oh, so I got like really overwhelmed and I shut down. So I was very shut down in some ways um during my teen years. And I
It's a
think
way
just
to
kind of like,
block things. It's a way to
yeah,
block.
yeah. Yeah. So some things, so once again, just kind of like this dichotomy, because on the one hand, I was very creative. I had friends, things like that. I did things, but on the other hand, I was very shut down. And toward the end of high school, almost the last like year and a half, I was in a what I would consider a deep depression. I if left alone, I could sleep 17 hours a day or whatever. I was just very, it was really rough for me to be walking in the world. Um and
Why so
and I had
sad?
Why so sad?
Yeah.
I think that, well, there were of course things that happened. Um
Okay.
so I was acquaintance raped when I was 14.
Okay.
That's how I lost my virginity. I was kind of love starved in a way,
Okay.
right? So how I moved through those years was really dysfunctional, really
Okay.
dysfunctional. Um, and so it's like there were some real high points and beauty to that time of my life, and some real there was a lot of darkness there. Yeah. Yeah, and I really didn't feel like there was anyone that I could talk to or go to, because there wasn't,
Because there wasn't really.
there wasn't really, so I
Yeah.
felt very alone. I felt very alone. I felt very much like, the pain that I was experiencing, um, no one else in the world, of course, could know or
Yeah,
understand, but
well,
there
you
also
think
wasn't.
that though. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, we
it
do. So,
feels that
so
way.
it does. It does. And so yeah, my teen years were actually quite painful
Oh, I'm
and
so
shut down,
sorry.
and but like you said earlier, it's what makes
It
you.
brings you to this point where you are now.
That's right. It's what makes you who you are.
Yeah, it
And
does.
yeah, and it does for me, it brings out this part that is like really wanting to help uh women in general,
Mm,
really understand how powerful they are, that their bodies are
yes.
sacred, that they are for them, that, it's just like there's just some core things that come up that allow you to, because of your experience, allow you to really help. You are a wisdom keeper now of certain of certain things,
That's
right?
right.
And
Right, that's
yeah,
right.
yeah.
Now, do you work with young women, young teens, or anything like that?
Um, I have in the past. I'm not currently,
Mhm.
doing anything of that way now, but I do. Um, what I do find is when I am working with people that there's usually a pretty good range, in
Age range?
age, right?
Okay.
Age range. Yeah, yeah. even in the client, when I see one-on-one clients, because that's one of the, we were talking about things that you do. So I work with people one-on-one, and there's always, quite a range there, which is good. So I'm not usually one that goes, well, I focus on, this.
Sure, one thing.
It's just like, yeah, what shows up, so I can be responsive, right, in terms of like, I haven't seen it all, but I've been through a lot.
Been through a lot,
Right.
sure.
I've been through a lot. Yeah.
Hmm. Um, so what's I going to ask you? Let's see my questions here.
Hmm.
So, okay, you do, so that's what you would call like your transformational classes, what you do. Because in your bio, I was looking at that,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
you you do a lot of you use the word transformational quite quite a bit.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
and so you're that's what you would call what you're doing now, working with the age range that you do, you're helping them to transform um
Hmm.
from one to another. So
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
so your high school days were kind of bleak and but again,
Hmm.
you got through it and
Hmm.
it did definitely make you stronger, right? I kind of
Yeah,
live by the motto that which does not kill you makes
that's
you
right.
stronger, and it's true. So then you went to
Good.
college right away?
No, no, not at all. So growing up where I did, and having kind of the adolescence that I did,
Mhm.
there really wasn't anyone that was talking to me about the futures
What's
were
your
kind of limited there, right?
Yes, I totally get that. Yeah.
Yeah, you get married or you go to work in the local factory, or, and
Don't have to
um
worry about college.
so yeah, you don't have to worry about college, and none of the and actually, although I was on the honor roll and stuff, I was an A student. They weren't really talking to me about that as something to do. And it just didn't even really feel like anything within reach, you know.
Yes, it wasn't
It
possible.
Yeah, it just wasn't. And it was possible, but I wasn't shown that it could be, right?
Yeah. No,
And
you
go to
did you
college, I was,
believe that it was possible at that time? Like for
no.
me, it was like, oh, I mean, I did go to for 1 year, um, and I got really no encouragement. I was working full time, and it was
Mhm.
it was hard, and I was young, and I
Yep.
found
Yeah.
other things
Yeah.
to do. So, and
Yeah.
any other thing like that I would have wanted to do as a child or as a teenager, thinking about, oh, this would be a good, I wanted to be a forest ranger. Really, I wanted to do that.
Mhm.
And I didn't even think if I told my mom that, she would just lose her mind.
Mhm.
Are you kidding me? Women don't do that. That's ridiculous. So it wouldn't have been possible. I just
Mhm.
didn't think in my mind that that would have been a possibility that I could do something.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. I think I would say that, it my parents weren't in this space of like holding back,
Mm.
or of saying like, no, you can't do that, or that's
Oh,
crazy.
okay.
But it wasn't in their experience either. So I was first generation when I did finally go to college, and I was an adult and a mother already when I
Okay.
started going to college. I mean, they weren't necessarily like a barrier to that. It just wasn't, they didn't have experience, so they didn't know the things
It,
that you would need to do to set yourself up to even be
okay.
able to go,
Yeah.
so
Okay.
it's just like, it really just wasn't. um, or if they did and they were trying, like I said, when I was like 17, I was in a deep depression. So I might not have been able to meet any kind of help or guidance at that point either, right?
Yeah. Did your
So it's
parents
just,
know that you were depressed?
I believe they knew something was wrong, you
Okay.
know.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
But didn't
yeah,
know how to address it,
yeah, yeah.
probably. I mean, what do
Um,
you do?
yeah. And it's just, and
Oh, she'll
then,
grow out of it.
through their lens too, it's just like, I was being lazy or whatever, but it
Yeah.
was just, yeah, you know, like I said, we all do the best we can with what we know and understand. And,
Right.
um,
So you got married right out of high school
I
then,
got
pretty much?
married pretty much, I was like a year out of high school when I got married. I was 19 when I got married.
Okay.
Um, and, and then we moved like right away to Arizona,
Oh,
where
wow.
I had my first daughter. So I had my first child when I was 20. Um, and yeah, so it was that also was a kind of a trying
That would have been, yeah, by
time in my life.
yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. But we did move back after about a year. We
Why did
moved
you
back
move to
with a
Arizona?
new baby. Because he had a job down there. Yeah. And that was at a time when this was in the 80s, and a time when there was actually quite a migration out of Michigan,
For
because of
sure.
because there were really no jobs here.
Yeah.
And yeah, and so he had a stepdad down there that we went and stayed with, and he worked with him and his company. And
Okay.
yeah, but yeah, so and that marriage lasted almost 20 years.
Wow.
Um yeah, yeah. And I had three children
Okay.
through the marriage.
20
Yeah, I had
years
three
is a good
daughters.
long time. That's a good
Yeah.
investment in a relationship. It just, you weren't in love anymore, if you don't mind me asking.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm not so sure I'll talk about a whole
Okay.
lot there, but the I will say that there was always love there.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Okay.
but we were children essentially when we got married. I was
Sure.
19 and he was 20. And you may
Well,
think you know who you are and what you want
you
and all
don't.
of those things. You don't. And there was a lot of, and both of us were very unhealed, you know, because there wasn't a huge transformation that happened between high school and getting married,
No, no.
and so it's like, so both of us had a lot of unhealed places. And in the end, it was just, um, we need getting a divorce was one of the hardest decisions I had to come to, right? And it was a very I was in a lot of pain, it was a very painful time
Sure.
in my life. And so it was like, but it was necessary. The divorce was necessary. It was
Mhm.
necessary for me to become the person that I needed to become. And it was
Yeah.
necessary for him as well. Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
it it all worked out the way it was supposed to.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
But
and he started to thrive afterwards too, and I was able to finally step into, because he certainly wasn't of a mind that, I'm kind of like a bit of a woo-woo girl, and I'm also I'm out there a little bit for some
Mhm.
people.
Mhm.
And I also was very much about change and growth, because that, you were speaking to transformation, and that has been a driver for me. I mean,
Mhm.
it's just like,
I believe that.
yeah, it is a driver to
Mhm.
continue to learn and change and grow. And for him, that was scary and
Yes,
intimidating.
he knew
And,
enough. He was done.
that's right. He wanted to keep things really,
I'm good.
and I'm like,
Yeah, no,
no.
yeah, well, coming from, again, because I growing up where you grew up, and
Mm.
and I grew up in the same, there's houses here now, but this was where I am now. There was nothing out here. So you're isolated. And I always tell Rocky, we were hicks. We didn't know anything, we just
Yeah,
knew
I was a
nothing.
hick.
So you come from that, and then you come to a point where there's so much out there, especially
Mm,
if you like, for me, I too, I was a late bloomer with college. I didn't go until I was in my 40s. Um, but it opened up my world so much, as far as and I wasn't closed-minded, but I certainly wasn't as open as I am now. I
Yeah.
mean, I
Yeah.
understood, you learn to understand other people's points of views. It's not all about,
Hmm.
and so
Hmm.
that sort of thing. And so I get
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
you wanted. You wanted to grow and
Hmm.
transform, change, and
Hmm.
it's not for everybody. So,
No. Yeah. Getting an education was a big rub in that marriage. I mean,
oh,
because, I really, I really felt like it was something I needed to do.
mhm.
It was like
Yes.
I needed to do this, and not just for myself, but for my daughters and for my family and things like that. It was just like I can't wait tables forever, and I have a mind that is that is seeking. I have a voracious mind
Mhm,
that loves to learn and grow and understand the world.
mhm.
And me getting my education, going into higher education was a huge rub in my marriage. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So he didn't have any college background or anything like that. So
Mm-mm.
yeah, yeah,
No,
yeah.
no.
Well, yeah. I guess I can see that, how that would be, um, the feeling of being, sub or not, what am I thinking of? Less than another person because you don't have that
Mhm.
education. You get a
Mm.
little jealous or, so anyway,
Yeah.
moving on. Um, uh, so how old were you when you went to college? You started college?
Um,
Because
so
you've
I
got
would have
quite an
been,
education here.
yeah, I would have been, and it didn't, I didn't go to college like I'm going to go to college now. What
Mhm.
happened was, um, a local community college had satellite classes at
Okay,
the high school in the town where I was currently living and working.
okay.
And so I was just like, um, and I like to learn, right? So I took I think it was a creative writing course or something.
Okay.
So I took a college course through the local high school. Um, I was just like, and hooked, of course, right? So I
Yes.
took everything that I could there through that, while I was working and raising the kids. So it was like
Mhm.
usually like one class at a time. But then I got to a point where I couldn't take any more through there. I would have had to go to the main campus, right?
Okay.
And so at that point, I did decide I was going to go after my associate's degree,
All right.
and start going there. Yeah, and that's when also it changed from like a hobby to I want to do this, and that's when
I'm
it
doing
started to
this.
create a lot of tension, right? But
Yeah.
it took me, but I did end up getting my associate's degree.
Mhm,
And then I was wanting to, get a bachelor's,
mhm.
and I actually got an academic scholarship to MSU to finish up
Okay.
my last 2 years. And so that was awesome. And so but it was 10 years time from the time I started taking classes to actually getting the bachelor's degree, you
Mhm.
know, because I was having kids and working full time and, kind of doing the thing. But
Yeah,
so, yeah, so it's,
I don't
yeah.
know how you ladies can do that because when I was going, I I got my associates at a community college, Wayne County, and then I went to U of M to
Mhm.
get my bachelor's. But some of these women, they come in and they've got two or three kids. They're taking three or four classes, and I think, oh my, and they're working too. And how do
Mhm.
they do that? Here, I'm semi-retired from my old job. I did the books for my late husband, but I didn't have to be anywhere at any time, really. And I don't know how do you manage that without losing your mind? So I got to hand it to you. Yay. For that. Really.
Yeah, it's like there is sacrifice, there's a
Oh,
lot of sacrifice that
yeah.
goes into that. It's like I had not enough time with my family, really,
Mm,
in a lot of ways, which was, part of what my husband's issue was, right? Because
yeah.
it was taking away time with the family. I had not enough sleep. I
Hmm.
had zero social life, you
Hmm.
know. My house was crashed half the time. You got kids, right? So it's
Yeah.
like it is a lot, but there's sacrifice and but I was really felt like um that for me it was just necessary. Once again, it's necessary. It's like
You have to
this
do it.
has to
There's.
happen. I have to do this.
Hmm.
And to stay alive. And it really felt kind of life or death for me in a way.
Hmm.
It
No, I
really did.
totally understand that. I do.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
And
important. It
and it
was
did,
important.
and those sacrifices did make a big difference in my ability for us to, actually move the kids to a better school system and to help in different ways. So it did make a huge difference, I think, in quality of life in a lot of ways.
Okay, sure.
So yeah, yeah.
That's well
But
worth it.
yeah, you do it. And when you're young and more resilient, you have more
Yeah,
energy and ability to do it, but it certainly wasn't without sacrifice. There was a lot that was sacrificed there.
for sure.
Um, yeah, yeah. And then I didn't go to begin going to grad school until after my divorce.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I got my first master. I started working on my first master's about a year after my divorce.
Mhm.
I got that one in 2008. And then uh, in 2015, I entered a PhD program. I got ABD at that point, but because of for many, many factors, I decided to take a master's out of that
Oh, okay.
too, and not complete the doctorate, which was like so close.
Yeah.
So
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 close.
so close. We always joke. I says, well, two masters equals a doctorate, right?
That's right. Yeah,
Yeah, I think
that
so.
makes sense. So, okay, so you divorced and then you were on your own for a while and then
Yeah, but not super long. I mean, I met Russ, my current partner, uh about a year after, yeah, also
okay.
about a year after the divorce. Yeah.
All
Yeah. And
right.
we've been together about 15 years now. So
Yeah, well,
yeah,
congratulations. That's
thank
nice.
you.
And so you got he's basically running the retail Even Stars Chalice.
Yeah, I mean, I
Um,
think we're equally partnered, but he's certainly the one
He
that's
spends
that's
more
the
time
he
than
spends more time there. He's the presence there. Yeah, that's for sure. Because, my work with so I'm there a little bit, but a lot of it that I do for the store I can do from home. But then I'm also teaching and seeing clients and doing the networking that also needs to happen as a business owner. So yeah,
for sure.
that's kind
Well,
of
eh, folks, if you're watching this and you've not been to Even Stars Chalice, it's in Ypsilanti. It's a lovely, lovely store. It has a lot of things for ritual that you can uh, purchase. Just want to give a little synopsis of what you sell in your store, like you do.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So it's a metaphysical shop. We really like to support, all paths. So it's not really niched in any way in terms of like,
Right.
some are like really witchy and some are more
Yeah.
new. Ours is really very eclectic in a lot of ways. We do have, though, kind of a tendency more to like honor the divine feminine.
Hmm.
So even within all those different paths, you're going to see, I think, a little bit more of the expression of the goddess expression
Hmm.
of those things. But yeah, we've got books and tarot and oracle and statuary, altar wares, ritual tools,
And you have people that
jewelry.
come in and do readings.
Yes, yeah. So we have readers and healers that are there,
Yes.
that kind of take in walk-in clients, and We're right now in some transition too. Jean, who you know, Jean had her
Mhm.
hair salon.
Yes.
In the back. So she has found a new space. So she's in the process of moving her
Oh,
salon
wow. Okay.
into a different space and
Okay.
also opening her own. So she's been an antiques dealer and what she calls a junker, for many,
Hmm.
many years. Always had the dream of having like a little antique shop. So
Okay.
she's moved into her own space and she's going to have her hair salon in there and then also her antiques business.
Okay. Very nice.
So that's really great and exciting for her. And what it's done for us too is opened up some more space
That'll give you
in the
more
building.
space.
Yeah, yeah. So we're actually going to be like shifting that into kind of a little bit more like a gathering space, like a
Oh,
salon
nice.
where people can sit and have conversation and, because our
Yes.
store is used for a lot of that too. I mean, it's not just a store. People come in all the time for help, for deep connection. It's really a lovely spot to do that. So
Well, you
we want,
held that that was in the winter time. I
winter
can't remember.
solstice. Is that what you're
Winter
talking about?
solstice, was it where you had the three, you had the two, Susie, I think is her name,
Oh
and
yeah.
oh, I can't
Nathan.
remember. Nathan,
Yeah.
yes. Do a reading, draw a
hmm
card and do a reading. And oh, you had a great turnout for that.
Yeah, it was
It
nice.
was
Yeah.
wonderful. So yeah, I mean, people are really attracted to that space. That's
Mhm.
very nice.
Yeah.
And what you offer them is so welcoming and um comforting.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
a nice feel. The
Yeah.
whole place has a nice feel to it, I think. So
Well, that was really part of the intention setting when we opened the space,
mhm.
because we were very much, you know, it is a store and shopping needs to happen. But
Yes, of
really
course.
underlying it was this, creating the space and anchoring it in terms of so that it could be a transformative space in and of itself. So regardless of what you're there for, whether you're there to shop or drop by and say hi or come to an event or get a reading or whatever, that when you walk in the space, you can feel that you can kind of drop your shoulders a little bit
Mhm.
and go, ah, you know,
Yes,
and
exactly.
the space can hold you,
Hmm.
all of you, hopefully.
And you
Yeah. So
sometimes do classes out of the store too, don't you?
yeah, yeah. Occasionally we do like little mini classes out of that. And then we have a larger classroom space,
At
off site.
at the
Yeah.
institute.
At
So
the
yeah.
institute. Yeah.
So okay, so you have the store, and then what are we doing at the institute at this
Yeah.
point?
So right now at this point, it's kind of on back burner in terms of like, so through the institute we're still actively teaching Reiki classes and I will
Mhm.
probably offer some workshops or something like that, but it really is in a space of needing to be reimagined and rebranded
Oh,
and
okay. So
all of
you're
those things.
okay, you're
So yeah,
rethinking the whole thing and
yeah, kind
making
of
some
rethinking it, and
changes.
and it's all good and natural, it's like it's not like it, it's just I was coming to this point of, as I said, I was doing a lot of it myself,
Mhm.
and didn't feel like really I could afford the help,
Mhm.
so it wasn't going so well that I could bring in help to make it,
Right.
so I was in that tight place between having getting the help I needed to actually grow or go into the burnout phase. So there was kind of that piece that was going on, but also I was really sitting and questioning and wondering if the institute was going in the direction that I had kind of envisioned. Because
Mhm.
it's just like, so, the analogy I use is like, well, if I was wanting the institute to be an oak tree, am I planting acorns? And I
Yeah.
wasn't sure I was planting acorns.
Okay.
And the way we got there is because when we launched the institute,
Huh?
it was in the pandemic. So we were
Oh,
getting ready to launch something kind of very different. We got a pandemic, and then we're just like, so we pivoted, and so then we just moved some stuff online, and then it was just kind of like survival mode, right?
right.
And we were just like reacting and responding to what was showing up rather than having a vision and then moving things toward that vision. So this to me is just like a pause to kind of reset and to, do some deep listening around what it wants to be and really what wants to emerge there.
Okay.
And you can't do that when you are on the hamster wheel. You just
No.
can't. Yeah. So sometimes you gotta stop the hamster wheel. And so that's kind
Yeah, to
of
just get off and take
yeah.
a break for a minute.
Mhm.
So
So I put
you,
it on into first gear, right? So
yeah,
yeah, even Star Institute right now is in first gear.
okay. So you're
Yeah.
still teaching Reiki out of there at this point?
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah,
I
we're
took
still
a Reiki
teaching.
class and it was
Yay.
wonderful. It's wonderful. I have to go back and um, you have the Reiki class and then you have the Reiki Master. Is that the
Mm.
second one? There three stages
There are
or
three
just
levels.
three
Yeah, there's
levels?
three levels.
Okay,
We actually have it split into four in our program in terms
okay.
of like we split the master teacher into two different ones because not everyone wants to necessarily teach, but maybe they want to move to that top practitioner level, right?
Okay.
So yeah, so we have four levels in our program.
Well, it was a well worth the class. I made some friends also, which you
Yeah,
always tend to do at these things. It's just really
yeah.
nice.
Hmm.
Also, you just recently had the artisan market. Are you going to
Uh-huh.
continue with that? Was that a success for you or? Eh,
I would say probably will continue it, but not right now.
okay.
Yeah. Because we're just in a lot of my household is in a lot of transition, the business is in a
Oh,
lot of transition.
everything.
Yeah, yeah, everything's so and I keep getting these nudges from spirit that um things are changing. And,
Okay.
it's like I'm changing and my work is changing and how that gets expressed in the world and our needs are changing. And um, so yeah, just in a space of exploration right now and trying to give ourselves the space to do it, because we have been in active um, push mode for years. I mean, so Even Stars Chalice has been open for
Yes.
7 years now. Yeah, so 7 years, which is awesome.
Wow. Yay. That's
And
good. That's
yeah,
excellent.
yep,
Very
yeah,
nice.
and the Institute for about 4 years now. Yeah, so
Uh,
2020. Um,
so I just want to quickly say, Even Stars Chalice, do you do online sales?
we do. We have got an on we and yeah, this last year we
So you
spent the
can visit
time
them
in.
online.
Yeah, yeah, you can visit us online. We have a small store. I don't know, there's maybe about 300 items on there. We hope to like grow that and do that.
Okay,
And it's not the
sure.
same exact thing that's in the shop. It's a little bit, they're kind of like two separate businesses in a
Oh,
way,
really?
but
Okay.
yeah, yep. So yeah, evenstars.chalice.com. You can
Shop. Go
you can
shop
shop.
too. Yeah,
You
yes.
will shop.
And then now, okay, so you also have like Johanna, she does
Hmm.
her class on I think she does two different classes. Um, one is the goddess where she picks a
Yeah.
that
Mhm.
are you still gonna have her teach classes there or will
Yeah.
she be
So
able to
Johanna's not technically like doing that through our business, but she is doing it in our space.
in your
So she's
space?
got, yeah, yeah. So she has Goddess Temple, which is really beautiful offering, as you
That's
had
on
said. So
the
that's
first
once a month.
Sunday.
Yep.
That's
Yep.
lovely. We did the Kaliak,
Mm-hmm.
and it just so happens that the last two Sundays, first Sundays, we've been either out of town or
Yeah.
doing
Yeah.
something and couldn't go.
Yeah.
But I do want
In
to make
April,
that
though,
happen.
in April. I should make note though. It's pretty much always the first Sunday, but in April it's the second Sunday on the
Oh,
14th.
okay.
We
Good to
we had to
know.
move it. Yeah,
Okay,
and we're
good to know.
doing we're doing Inanna. We're doing Inanna.
Oh,
So
I don't.
yeah, so other people are still doing. making offerings through our space, right? So there's going to be a red tent there like next weekend. And
Oh,
so it's just the differences is like I'm not doing it, or they're not doing it necessarily
someone
through
else.
us, but they're like
Right.
renting the space and doing their thing.
And
And,
that's easy enough to do,
yeah,
right?
and we're supporting that, right? We're
For
supporting them.
sure.
We're using our platform to help them get the word out about those things. And Johanna is probably more closely affiliated with like Sophia Unfolds because Johanna's been
Okay.
part of that Sophia Unfolds community for a long time.
Oh, okay.
Um, so yeah, we're all kind of like,
Yeah, sure, of course. So,
interdependent.
um, one last thing I was going to ask you
Mm,
about, the future, and
yeah,
it's not clear at this time, it sounds like, but
yeah.
it feels like things the dust will settle and things will
Mm,
become clear for you.
I think so too. I think the dust will settle and next steps will become more clear.
Mhm.
I do feel like um, whatever unfolds isn't going to be a huge departure from original visions. I
Okay.
think that eventually we would like to have some space where all the things that we're doing can kind of be under one roof. That
Mhm.
would be ideal because that's part of the strain and the pull is just like, having
Yeah,
different locations and all of that kind of thing. So having a real place to land all the work would be really good. I feel also really called into doing more, personally, into doing more mentoring work with people,
I
both
think
business
that's
mentoring and spiritual
perfect for
mentoring.
you. I think that
Yeah,
is just perfect for you. You should be
yeah.
doing.
And I really feel like I have, um, I mean, we didn't really talk about the actual content and the background of, what I did in my education and also what I did in my professional
Okay.
career. But all of that kind of comes together in, I think, what's will begin unfolding next, which is really working in the realm of, well, it doesn't quite have words to it yet, but it does have, so the words that we are using, like new earth models. So I think I'm really meant to be working in the realm of helping us understand new and better ways of being, both
Oh,
being but also with one another. And a lot of my work is on culture and social, cultural creative and social artistry. That's so how do we actually create new culture and a culture that helps us sustain interconnectedness and understanding that we are ecologically
we're not
all within,
sustainable at all.
we're not sustainable at all, and that how interconnected we are with one
Do
another
everything
and the
else.
natural world and everything else, right?
Yes,
So we need new
exactly.
models. We need new models of ways of doing business, of ways of having institutions, of ways of just relating to one another and to the natural world. And so that for me has always been like where my work is going and in terms of leadership. And so how that translates though into like what the offerings are or how that expresses or whether even I just go off and work for someone else, right? And help someone else that's doing those things.
Yeah.
Don't know what that looks like yet, but I do feel like that's the tone and flavor of what it'll be. And then also there's this at the same time of
Hmm.
this call into this work, there's this call into rest, you
Hmm.
know. So at the same time, this call to slow the hell down
Yes.
and to do some replenishment and some restorative work. And yeah, and
That gives you the energy
yeah,
to look for new ways. And sometimes it just comes to you, when
yeah,
you're
yeah.
toiling away at whatever it is you're doing,
Right, right. Yes. Or can be
but
in some
you're
stillness. Yeah.
relaxed. Yes,
Hmm.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds great.
So that's what's next. Both of those things. Finding balance between the restorative, regenerative, and the creative
Mhm.
mode that gets activated, when when we slow down enough to hear it. So yeah.
Oh, good. Yeah, I think it'll come to you, once you
Mhm.
I think slowing down is the key to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, well, thank you so much, Mara,
Mhm.
for joining me today. I really appreciated that. Again, if you want to visit her store, Evenstar's Chalice, it's in Ypsilanti on Huron Street, right?
Mm.
Huron Street.
Yep.
It's in a nice little area. There's other
Yeah.
really cool little shops along there as well. So you would be uh, very entertained and
Mhm.
lots of things to look at and see. And then also her institute, if you're maybe looking, well, I don't want to go too far as to say if you were wanting to teach a class, you might approach, but there are some wonderful classes there, and there will be in the
Yeah.
future as well. There'll be something
Yes.
for something for transformation. So
Mhm.
thank you for joining Crohn's.
Oh,
I
thank you so
really
much.
appreciate that. And thank you everyone for watching this. Um, and we will see you soon. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know how to
All
end.
righty.
I'm going to end this. I don't know if I'll cut you off or not, but I'm going to end it.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye. Oh, it's still there. Okay. And meeting for all. Okay. Bye. Thanks.